I stood in the living room, my chest tight, staring at Vanessa as she leaned casually against the doorframe. The words she'd just said were still echoing in my head, and I couldn't seem to shake them. She was giving Josh the promotion. Josh, the guy who'd been with the company for less than a year. Adam, she said, her voice flat. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. It hit harder than I expected. Like she was trying to make it sound so simple, like I was overreacting. I couldn't even speak at first. All I could do was stare at her, hoping she'd say something else, something that would make sense of this. But she just kept talking. Josh brings a fresh perspective, she continued, eyes avoiding mine. The company needs someone new, someone who can push things forward. I felt the floor drop out from under me. A fresh perspective? I'd put in 12 years of late nights, sacrifices, giving up everything for the business and for us. And she was telling me this, that the company needed someone younger, someone new, when it was my name on the line every damn time. That's how it is, she said, finally meeting my eyes with a look that could have been sympathy or indifference. It didn't matter. It wasn't enough. She turned toward the door, sliding her coat over her shoulders as if we were just wrapping up a casual conversation. Her keys jangled in her hand as she walked out without a second glance. My stomach twisted as I watched her go, feeling the weight of everything I'd built coming down around me. I wanted to scream, to make her understand, but I just stood there, watching her car drive off, knowing that whatever I did next would change everything. I moved toward the office, grabbing my laptop and opening the family financial accounts. My hands were shaking. The more I dug into the numbers, the clearer it became. Every dollar, every investment Vanessa had ever made in the company was tied back to my family's wealth, my family's capital. It had always been my father's legacy, and for years I'd watched it grow with the work I put in. But now I could see it. Vanessa had been using it without me, for months. I pulled up the records. The large, bold amounts of money she'd withdrawn to keep the company afloat after Josh started making waves. A knock at the door pulled me out of the haze. It was Caroline, Vanessa's assistant. She'd been the one to drop hints, little whispers about Josh's rise, how he'd started shadowing Vanessa more, making decisions without my input. At first, I thought it was just her way of being helpful, passing along information I might need. But now, I realized what she'd been doing, feeding me crumbs so I wouldn't see the whole picture. "Hey," Caroline said, standing in the doorway, like she wasn't sure if she should come in. I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about the meeting tomorrow, or if you're okay." I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I wasn't okay. I had to focus. I needed something solid, something I could use. "Caroline," I said, my voice even, though I felt far from it. "You've been working with Josh closely, right?" She hesitated. "Yeah, why?" "Tell me everything," I said, leaning forward, my eyes locking on hers. "Everything. What's really going on with him and Vanessa?" Her gaze dropped to the floor, like she was trying to piece something together herself. After a few seconds of awkward silence, she spoke. I don't know how to say this, but Josh and Vanessa, they've been seeing each other for months." The words hit like a punch. My chest tightened as the air in the room seemed to thicken. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice low. Caroline nodded. "I've seen them together, more than once. There were late nights, at the office, private meetings, closed doors. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw it. I stood up, grabbing my phone. I needed to talk to Carl. It only rang twice before he picked up. "Adam, you okay?" "No, I'm not," I said, walking toward the window, looking out at the darkened street. "I need your help." "All right, talk to me. What happened?" I exhaled, holding the phone with a death grip. "Vanessa gave Josh the promotion. She's been using my family's money to fund his rise, and she's been sleeping with him." Carl didn't say anything for a moment, like he was letting that sink in. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled. "We need to move fast. You need to pull the reins on this before it goes any further. Get the documents, everything. We'll figure out the rest." "I'm already looking through the accounts," I told him, my mind racing, trying to figure out my next move. "But I need more. I need everything, Carl. I need to shut them down, and I need to do it now." "Then let's get it done," Carl said, his voice cold. "We've got the resources. We can hit them where it hurts." I could feel the tension building in my chest, but there was something else too. A strange calmness creeping in. A plan was forming, one I hadn't even realized I was capable of. I sat across from Carl and Ben at a booth in a greasy diner that hadn't changed since we were kids. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead made everything look just a little too harsh, a little too real. I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me, the anger, the confusion, the betrayal. But I couldn't let it show. Not here, not in front of them. Carl was leaning forward, eyes sharp, like he was ready to pounce on anything that moved. "You need to move fast," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Vanessa and Josh are making their play. The longer you wait, the more they'll have on you." I took a sip of coffee, my hand steady despite everything inside me screaming to act. "I know," I muttered, "but I need everything in place first. I can't just rush in and pull the trigger without knowing exactly what I'm up against." Ben, our cousin and the family lawyer, was quiet up until now, his eyes flicking between Carl and me. When he spoke, it was with the precision of someone who'd spent years thinking 2 steps ahead. "Legal action is your first step. If you're going to pull the funds, you need documentation, proof of everything. Otherwise, you're opening yourself up to a shitstorm." I clenched my jaw. Ben was right, but every instinct screamed to just act, to do something. But I knew if I screwed this up, I wouldn't just lose the company. I'd lose everything. The family wealth, the future I'd built, and Megan. I couldn't let that happen. "I'm working on it," I said, meeting Ben's eyes. "I'm pulling up everything. Every document, every account, every transaction." Carl's fingers drummed on the table, restless. "You've been keeping track of everything, right? The investments, the capital Vanessa's been moving?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm going through it now. She's been pulling more than I thought, using the family money like it's hers to spend." Carl didn't blink. "Then we need to shut it down. Fast!" I stared down at the coffee cup in front of me, the steam rising in slow curls. "I can't just yank everything out overnight," I said, voice tight. "If I do, it'll blow up in my face. There's a process. I've got to be careful." Ben raised an eyebrow, clearly considering something. "I'm telling you, if you're ready to burn it all down, why not take more than just the money? Why not take full control of the company? Use the family holdings to strip Vanessa and Josh of everything." The suggestion hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't sure I'd even processed it yet. Take control? The idea was radical, destructive. But in a twisted way, it made sense. I looked at Ben, weighing his words. "You're saying I should take the company from them? All of it?" Ben nodded, his eyes cold and calculating. "If you're already pulling the funds, you might as well finish the job. You've got the leverage. Strip them of power before they even know what hit them." The room seemed to get smaller. The weight of what Ben was proposing hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Was I really prepared to go that far? To not just expose Vanessa and Josh, but to take it all for myself? Carl leaned back and watching me closely. "It's your move, but you have to move quick." I turned my gaze to the window, my mind racing. This was bigger than anything I'd ever thought I'd have to do. But at the same time, it felt like I was cornered. No way out but forward. I couldn't afford to be soft anymore. Not with her. Not with Josh. I glanced back at Carl and Ben. "I need more. I need evidence, and I need it fast. Caroline's been helping me, but I'm going to need her to give me everything she's got. Every scrap of proof she can find." Carl was already pulling out his phone, his fingers moving fast. "I'll get on the financial side. I'll make sure we've got everything covered when the time comes." I didn't even look at Ben as I nodded. My mind was already racing ahead, planning my next move. The deeper I dug, the more I saw how far Vanessa and Josh had gone, how deep this betrayal ran. I was staring at my laptop screen, pulling up withdrawal notices for the family accounts, when my phone rang. It was Megan. "Hey, kiddo," I answered, trying to sound normal, even though my mind was still buried in the mess Vanessa had made. "Hi, Dad." Megan's voice was light, cheerful. She sounded like she always did at lunch, the middle of her day, still with that energy only a teenager could have. "I forgot my math binder at home. Can you bring it to me?" I closed my eyes for a second. The binder. I didn't care about the binder, but hearing her voice, hearing her ask for something so small, so simple, it hit me harder than I expected. "Sure, sweetie," I said, even though a knot was tightening in my chest. "I'll bring it to you." "Where are you now?" "Out front of the school. I've got study hall after lunch." "Thanks, Dad." I hung up, my hand still on the phone. Study hall. It wasn't just a simple call. It was a reminder that I was supposed to be the one she could count on, that I was supposed to be the steady one, and I was failing in ways I never imagined. I thought about my wedding day, about those vows. For better or for worse, I'd said. I promised her I'd always be there, I'd always have her back. And now, here we were. I'd spent years building a future together, only to watch it crumble piece by piece because of what she'd done. But Megan, she had no idea what was going on. She was still so innocent, still so young, and I was about to pull everything out from under her, no matter what it cost me. I rubbed my temples, the weight of it all pressing down on me harder. If I pulled the funds, when I pulled the funds, it would send shockwaves through Vanessa's world. The company would implode. She'd be left with nothing. Maybe even Josh, too. But what would it do to Megan? What would it do to us? I'd be risking everything. My relationship with her, my family. I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the street, the quiet, the calm before the storm. And I realized, like it or not, I'd run out of time. The decisions had already been made for me, and if I didn't act now, right now, it would be too late. I pulled up the documents again, starting to fill in the withdrawal notices. My hands moved faster now, more sure of themselves. But even as I typed, the guilt gnawed at me, the weight of it all. There was no going back from this. And once I pulled that money out, Vanessa's world would come crashing down. But it had to be done. I didn't have a choice. I glanced at the clock. The timing was everything. If I did this right, if I pulled the funds just as Josh made his big move, the one that was supposed to solidify his place in the company, it would all go to hell for them. And the best part? I'd have the leverage to take control. But what about Megan? What about her? I tried to shake the thought, but it wouldn't leave me. Would she hate me? Would she understand why I'd done it? Or would she see me as the man who destroyed everything? I took a breath and focused. I couldn't afford to second guess. Not now. I clicked the button to send the first withdrawal request. The clock was ticking. The withdrawal requests went through. One by one, the funds started to drain out of Vanessa's company, like water slipping through cracks in a dam. I sat at my desk watching the numbers on the screen, feeling the weight of every dollar pulled from their grasp. It was calculated, precise, timed perfectly for the board meeting where Vanessa was supposed to formalize Josh's promotion. The fallout would be quick. The damage would be total. The phone buzzed on my desk. It was Vanessa. I picked it up without hesitation. "Adam, what the hell are you doing?" Her voice was a mixture of panic and disbelief, the way I imagined a person might sound when their world was collapsing in on them. "You need to fix this, right now." I didn't answer right away. I let her words hang in the air for a moment, just long enough for her to realize that something was very, very wrong. "I'm not fixing anything," I finally said, my voice cold, calm. The same voice I'd used when I closed a deal, when I knew I was in control. "You don't get to just take everything and expect no consequences." I heard her breath catch, a moment of stunned silence. Then she snapped back. "You don't understand. You're ruining everything. The company, our lives. Adam, please don't do this." The sound of her voice, the desperation. It should have been enough to make me waver, to feel a flicker of guilt maybe, but it didn't. All I felt was the weight of what needed to be done, the quiet satisfaction of seeing the pieces fall into place. Her world was crumbling, and I was the one holding the threads. I hung up without saying another word. I didn't need to explain myself. I'd already made my move, and nothing she said would change it. I didn't have to wait long to see the effect. Within minutes, the first stock drop hit, then the next. Employees started to panic. There were calls coming in from every direction, some demanding answers, some looking for a way out. Vanessa's position, her power, was evaporating before her eyes. I let it play out, watching the chaos unfold on the newsfeed. It felt almost detached, like I wasn't even watching the destruction of my own life, but someone else's. But it was my life, my family's legacy, and I'd be damned if I let her destroy it. By the time she got home, the tension in the house was unbearable. She stormed in, her face pale, eyes wide with panic, like she was searching for answers in a place where there were none. "Adam, what the hell have you done?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fury and fear. She came toward me, pointing a shaking finger, her eyes blazing. "You've ruined everything, everything I've worked for. How could you do this to me?" I stayed where I was, leaning back in my chair. My hands were steady, my voice even. I didn't ruin anything. You did. You and Josh. She took a step forward, desperation creeping into her voice. Please, Adam, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll fix it. I'll fix everything. Just tell me what you want. I can make this right. Just stop. Please. But I wasn't listening anymore. Not to the pleas, not to the apologies that were dripping with self-interest. This wasn't about saving her anymore. It was about saving me, about protecting what was mine. I stood up slowly, looking at her. You don't get to fix it. Not this time. You thought you could play me, Vanessa, but I'm done being played. Her face crumbled then, her mask of control slipping, and I saw it for what it really was, the unraveling of someone who thought they could get away with everything. The company was gone. Josh was as good as gone, and now so was she. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking, her eyes pleading. I'll make this right. Just tell me what to do. I walked toward the door, pausing just long enough to turn and face her. It's too late, I said quietly, the finality in my words hanging heavy between us. I've already made sure my family is protected. You're on your own now. I opened the door and stepped out, leaving her standing there, the sound of her sobs following me as I walked into the night. I was still shaking off the weight of last night's confrontation when my phone buzzed the next morning. It was my mother, Elaine. She didn't call often, and when she did, it was always with a purpose. I knew this wasn't going to be a how are you kind of conversation. Adam, she said, her voice clipped, businesslike. I heard about what happened. You made your move. I didn't say anything right away. The words were still fresh in my head, but hearing her voice, cold, disapproving as always, made me brace for impact. Yeah, I did. There was a pause on the other end, a soft sigh. Good. It was necessary. I couldn't help it. I was taken aback. Wait, you're not mad? Mad? She repeated, almost sounding confused by the question. No, you did what had to be done. Your father would have done the same thing if he were still here. Her tone softened, just a fraction. You've got to protect what's yours. We always have. Her words, calm and to the point, hit harder than I expected. There was no judgment, no disapproval, just that straightforward, unflinching tone she always used when she was teaching me something. You're not just protecting yourself, Adam, she added. You're protecting the family. We look out for each other. I exhaled slowly, the tension in my chest loosening a little. I hadn't realized how much I'd been waiting for her approval. Not from Vanessa, not from Josh. Her, my mother. The one person I could always count on to make me feel like I wasn't completely lost. Thanks, I said quietly. I needed to hear that. Of course, she replied, her voice steady again. Now, listen carefully. Your father planned for moments like this. He knew that family businesses are built on trust, but trust can be broken. He set up provisions in the event of a situation like this. You have the power to take full control now. I sat up straight, the words sinking in like stones in my stomach. What do you mean, full control? She didn't hesitate. The investments your father made, the ownership stakes, everything. There are legal clauses in place, agreements that ensure the family can protect the business. If necessary, you can strip Vanessa and Josh of everything. I was starting to feel like I wasn't just the one left holding the wreckage. I was the one who was supposed to put it all back together. Are you sure? I asked, my mind racing through the implications of what she was saying. I'm sure, she replied, her voice unwavering. Your father made sure we were always in control. This is your moment, Adam. Don't waste it. The conversation ended shortly after that, but the weight of her words stuck with me. She wasn't just confirming what I had already started, she was pushing me forward. She was giving me permission to take control, not just of the company, but of my own future. The phone rang again. This time it was Vanessa's mother. I didn't even let it ring twice before I answered. What have you done? She demanded. Do you realize the damage you've caused? You've destroyed my daughter's career, her life. I didn't let her finish. No, Mrs. Holloway, you destroyed it. You and your daughter. And now, it's over. Her words sputtered in frustration, but I wasn't listening. I already knew what I had to do. Vanessa's position in the company was done. The board would never trust her again. And Josh? He was as good as out. I ended the call, not needing to hear any more. I sat there for a moment, processing the full weight of it. I wasn't just securing my family's legacy. I was taking back what was mine. I had the leverage, the power, and now, the green light from the people who mattered most. The pieces were falling into place faster than I had expected, and I was starting to realize that I wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. I was fighting to reclaim everything that had been taken from me. The boardroom was as cold and sterile as I remembered it, the long table polished to perfection, the chairs arranged just so. I stood at the door for a moment, feeling the weight of everything that had led me here. This was it, the moment I'd been working toward. Vanessa had no idea what was coming, and Josh was about to see how badly he'd underestimated me. I walked in, my steps steady, my back straight. They were already seated, Vanessa on one side, Josh beside her. They both looked a little too confident, like they thought the game was still in their hands. It made me sick. Vanessa's eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a split second, I saw something shift in her. Maybe it was the realization that she was no longer in control. Maybe she was already beginning to understand that this wasn't going to go the way she thought. "Adam," she said, her voice tight, "you're wasting your time. We've already decided the direction for the company. Josh is—" I cut her off before she could finish. "No, Vanessa, you decided. Not the board, not anyone but you and Josh. But that's about to change." Josh straightened in his seat, his eyes narrowing, clearly trying to project an air of intimidation. "You think you can just walk in here and take over?" he sneered. "You think the board's going to side with you? You don't have the power anymore." I took a slow breath, keeping my focus on him. "I don't need to intimidate anyone, Josh. I've got all the power I need right here." I slid the legal documents onto the table in front of me. "Proof, every last bit of your little scheme, the manipulation of funds, the misuse of the family money, the way you've been using the company's capital for personal gain." I let the words hang in the air, watching both of them squirm. I saw Vanessa's face flush, her eyes darting between the board members, each one now eyeing her with distrust. It was over. They saw the truth, and it wasn't on her side. Josh tried to recover, but his voice wavered. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered. "You can't just—" I looked at the board. "You all know the situation here. I'm not here to make threats. I'm here to take control of what's mine, and I have every legal right to do it." One by one, they looked at the documents, nodding as they reviewed the evidence. It didn't take long for them to make their decision. "Unanimously, we vote in favor of Adam Whitmore," the chairperson said, his voice final. Vanessa's jaw clenched. Her hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "You can't do this, Adam. This is our company. You can't just—" I held up my hand, stopping her in her tracks. I'd heard enough. "Vanessa," I said, my voice steady but cold, "it's already done. The company is mine again." "It's over!" She opened her mouth to protest, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned my back on her, walking toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I could hear her voice cracking, desperation flooding her words. "Adam, please, you can't do this to me. After everything we built—" I didn't turn around. I couldn't. "It's too late for that," I said quietly, my hand already on the door. "You made your choice." I stepped into the hallway, the door closing behind me with a quiet finality. The next few days felt like a blur, but in the best way. The weight of the decision was still there, heavy in my chest, but it wasn't crushing me anymore. It was freeing me. I was free. Free of Vanessa. Free of the company's chaos. Free of everything that had been dragging me down for too long. The board meetings were behind me, and the power was mine again. I was making decisions for the business the way I'd always wanted to, building it, restructuring it for growth. I didn't have to answer to anyone but myself. I was taking control of my future now, not just the company's. I started with small changes, things that needed fixing, things I'd put off for years. But each decision, each shift in direction, felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't just reclaiming my family's legacy. I was shaping it into something that could last. Megan and I were talking more too. Her phone calls weren't just about forgetting binders anymore. She'd call me at night just to chat, asking about my day, telling me about hers. I could hear in her voice that she admired how I was handling everything. She didn't know the details, the messy parts, the ugly stuff, but she knew I was strong. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was being the father I promised her I'd be. There was one moment, late one night, when she came into my office. She stood in the doorway, watching me work, and I looked up at her. "Dad," she said, almost hesitant, "you're doing okay, right?" I put the papers down, leaning back in my chair. "I'm doing better than okay, Megan. I'm doing great." She smiled, the kind of smile that told me she was proud of me. It made everything worth it, this new chapter, this new life I was building. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were thriving. One afternoon, a few weeks later, I came home to an envelope sitting on the kitchen table. It was from Josh. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. I could already hear his voice in my head, the same cocky tone, the same arrogance that had always made him think he was the one running the show. But I opened it anyway. The letter was short, but the words were clear. An apology. A half-hearted one at that. He'd lost everything. His job, his reputation, his access to all the things he'd thought he could take for granted. "I should have never underestimated you," the letter read. "You always had the power. I'm sorry for how things went down." It wasn't much, but it was something. I folded the letter, putting it in my back pocket without much thought. It didn't matter. Josh was out of the picture now, just another casualty of the game he'd tried to play. But it felt like a final nail in the coffin of that old life, the life that used to feel so suffocating. I stood by the window, watching the city skyline stretch out before me. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over everything. It felt like a sign, like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another.